Hello and welcome to Foldspace Origami Studio. I am your host, Mr. James W. Peak, and the Lunar New Year is upon us. And in honor of the 2021 Year of the Ox, I'm going to teach you how to fold this fabulous little water buffalo model that was designed by Fumiaki Kawahata. Kawahata has designed scores of models over the years and published numerous books, but perhaps the model he is known best for is his rendition of the little green Jedi Master, Origami Yoda. This model appears in Fumiaki Kawahata's book, Animal Origami, which I highly recommend, and is available at origamishop.us. To fold this model, I'm going to use a 7-inch square sheet of kami, which is white on the back, so I get the really cool color change for the horns. And 7 inches translates to 17.6 centimeters, in case you were wondering. Our first step, we're going to take the bottom edge of the square and fold it up to the top edge for a book fold. Next, I'm going to rotate the paper 1/2 turn or 180 degrees so that the raw edges are back on the bottom now, and I'm going to take the bottom edge of the top flap and fold it up to the creased edge. And we want to do the same thing to the back side of the paper, so I'm going to flip the model over left to right, and I will repeat the previous step. Now I'm going to open up the paper from the back so that I end up with this rectangle shape, which is also a cupboard fold. Next, we are going to take the bottom edge of this shape and we're going to bring the entire edge over to each of the two side edges. So I'm going to go to the right first, make sure that that bottom edge lines up with the side all the way down to the corner. And then unfold, and unfold this flap as well. And now I will repeat to the opposite side. And unfold. Now I'm going to unfold the paper entirely, and I'm going to position the paper so that the colored side is facing up. And for the next step, we are going to reverse some of the creases. And what's neat about this is that it's very similar to the corrugation method and how I like to teach folding corrugation origami models. So here's what we're going to do. First of all, notice that we have two valley crease segments, one here and another one here. And I'm going to begin this step by reversing those valley creases into mountain creases. So I'll do the top one first here, and I'm just going to just kind of gently pinch the paper so I can reverse that top segment of this zigzag. And I'm going to reverse this segment here. And be careful not to add any new creases to the paper. And once that is done, we will now focus on these three crease segments. And right now the orientation of those creases are as follows. We have a mountain, a valley, and then another mountain. And we want to reverse all three of those. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start on one end, and I'm just going to sort of gather the pleats as I go. So this is what that looks like. I'm going to pick it up, use my thumb to reverse this segment here. You see how if I pinch using this as a guide, I can start to collapse and gather the paper. Now this segment here will become a mountain crease. And then finally, we will reverse the final segment here. This mountain crease will become a valley. And in doing so, we end up with this form here. Now we are going to take the corner of this flap here, and we're going to bring it up to meet this corner here, making a valley crease. And we're only taking one flap, so we're going to leave the one behind it in place. And we're going to fold that corner up and then unfold. And now we are going to open this topmost flap by creating a new valley crease that goes from this corner to here. And what will also happen is this mountain crease that's already on this bottom edge of the flap will become unfolded. Here's what that looks like. We just bring this flap, bring it down, making that new valley crease right under here. And once this paper is opened up, we want to do the same to the back side, so I'm going to flip it over right to left and repeat the same step. I'm going to take this point here and I'm going to bring it up to meet this point, making a valley crease here. Next, we unfold that flap, and we will now create the new valley crease here while opening the flap. For the next step, we are going to use some existing creases in the paper to make an inside reverse fold, which is going to take place up here in this top corner. So if I open up the paper, or rather pick up the paper and let it open up a little bit, use my thumb to reverse that center crease, push that in and collapse it back down, and here we are. And I'm going to orient the paper like so for the next few steps. Now we are going to create the horns that have a really nifty color change. So I want to point out we have a landmark here already in the paper. There is a crease that comes from this point, this flap, up to here. We also have two raw edges. We've got a raw edge here and we've got a raw edge here. And we're going to create two angle bisectors by folding those raw edges at the bottom up to the center line. So here's one. And there's that color change. And now for the other one. And the ox has two horns, of course, or the buffalo in this case. Pretty much the same thing. And so now we're going to flip it over left to right so that we can work on this same flap. Looks kind of like a shield. And we're going to take the raw edges at the bottom to the center crease line that's already in the paper, making two angle bisectors at the bottom. So there's the first half. And now I'll do the second half. And now I'm going to rotate the paper back to this orientation. And I'm I'm going to point out two existing creases in the paper. There's a crease line from here to there, and then from that point there's the crease line that we used as a landmark in the previous step. And we are going to add a third crease to get the flap ready to make a rabbit ear fold. And that crease is going to happen from here up to the top. And there's actually a very easy way for us to pre-crease that segment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this front edge here and I'm going to turn it like the page of a book so that it connects with that top point. And when I turn this, I can basically fold it back as far as the paper will allow, but I'm only going to crease from the top down to where this color change happens. And if I unfold, you will see that we've made this new vertical valley crease segment, which gets us ready for a rabbit ear. So to do the rabbit ear for the horns, begin by pinching along the horn section here into a valley fold, and you see it'll just naturally all kind of fall into place. And we want to collapse the horn and push it upwards like so. And we repeat on the back side. So here I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to make the pre-crease for the rabbit ear. So I will kind of turn this like the page of a book, and the paper will have a natural stopping point. And just remember to only crease from the top down to where the color changes. Unfold. Now we can do our rabbit ear. So we will pinch the horn in half, like so. And then if we just keep pinching and kind of flatten it down onto the table, we can now let this naturally fall up like this. And now we've got two flaps for horns. We're going to do a few more folds on the horns. So for the next step, I want to zoom in a little bit so that you can see something that I'm going to do here. For the next step, we are essentially going to create an angle bisector that bisects the angle of this edge and then this side of the horn. So it creates an angle bisector that's right about here. But I want for you to leave a little bit of a gap. And here's what I mean. So we're going to take this top edge here, we're going to bring it down to the vertical edge of the colored part of the model, but I'm not going to bring it all the way up. I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap, just the tiniest little gap, maybe just a couple millimeters in width. That gap is right here, and in a moment you will see why we want to leave that gap, because it makes some of the next fold a little bit easier to do. Okay, now we will take this bottom point of the horn here, and we're going to bring it to meet this corner here. So we just bring that tip of the horn to the corner right over here. And then, this is why we want to leave the gap. We're going to take this flap and we're going to turn it to the right, like the page of a book. And leaving that gap gives us a lot of extra room that we need to let that sit down cleanly. Now let's repeat on the opposite side. So I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to bring the top edge of the horn down to meet the vertical while leaving a little bit of a gap, like so. And then I'm going to take the tip of the horn and bring it to this corner here. And then I will take that horn flap and flip it to sit along the body. And it's really thick. We've got a bunch of layers all built up right there. But now I'm going to open up the model from underneath and flatten it out like so. And because of all of the layers up here in the front of the model, around the head, it's not really going to want to lie flat, and some of the layers are going to be competing with one another for space. Now we want to make a small pinch mark to use as a reference point. And to make that pinch mark, I'm going to flip the model over to the underside. And now what I'm going to do is take the bottom two corners of this house shape, and I'm going to bring them up to meet these two corners, but I'm only going to make a pinch mark in the center as a reference point. So take those bottom corners, bring them up. Remember, you're not making a full fold, just a little pinch in the middle. Unfold, then flip the model back over. Now we have a handy reference mark that we're going to bring the bottom edge of the model up to. So there's that pinch mark. I'm going to take the bottom edge and meet the pinch mark, make a full crease this time, and then I'm going to unfold. Next, we are going to take these corners, these raw corners, these flaps right here, and we're going to bring the center edge over to meet this crease line here, making a 45-degree angle relative to the edge of the paper. We'll do that on both sides. So let's do this first flap on the right. Repeat the same on the left. We're making a right isosceles triangle. And now we will do a similar move with the far outside corners of the model so that they mirror the flaps that we just folded up. So we're going to take this bottom edge here, and we're going to bring that up to meet this edge. And it might not go all the way, and it does not matter if there's a gap there. What I should have said, actually, is that we are going to take this edge here up to meet this crease here. Because again, it's inconsequential that we have a gap here in the paper, because this will eventually be folded over and hidden, so you won't even see it at the end of the model. So here, I'm going to take the side edge over to meet this horizontal crease. And now that we've done those steps, we can refold this bottom flap. I'm just going to flip this up like so. And we are nearing the finish line. Next, let's flip the model over. And once again, we're going to use this house shape, and we're going to bring the bottom corners of what we have now up to meet these corners. And this time we will be making a full crease all the way across the paper. So we'll bring this up like so. And I'm just going to do this in the air. Now unfold that flap, flip it back over, and we're close to folding the model in half again, but before we do, we're going to fold the tip of the snout. So you're just going to take a little portion of the tip and fold it down. And keep in mind that because of all of the layers here, it's very thick. And now that we've done the snout, we will be folding the whole model in half again, which means we have to fold through the snout. And so there is a risk of tearing the paper here. So try to be gentle and fold through all of those layers of the snout. And we're very close to being finished. But the last thing we need to do is make the model more three-dimensional, more volumetric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the model here like so, where I'm pinching the horns against the head. And I want to point out three landmarks. The first landmark is this corner right here, the very back of the horn. I also want to point out this corner right here of this flap. And finally, we have this vertical crease. For the next step, we want to make a mountain crease that will travel from this point towards this point here, but we want to stop when we reach this vertical crease. And so to do that, I kind of pinch the paper and just kind of position that crease so that if it were to continue past this existing crease line, it would hit this corner. Now the exact placement of this is rather inconsequential, so it can be general in terms of its placement. So I'm just going to kind of visualize that line going from where I'm pinching it and kind of aim for that corner right here. Oh, here we go, and I'm going to stop when I reach the existing crease line in the paper. Now we are going to use the end point of that crease right here to pinch a new mountain fold that will travel from there to this back corner. And fortunately, the paper kind of knows where to go, so you can just guide it into place, give it a little pinch. One thing that I like to do to really kind of reinforce these creases, particularly because we have a number of layers that we're folding through in the back, is I'll actually, if we flip this over, you can close this all the way in, and this behaves much like an inside reverse fold. So look, I can fold that all the way over like so. Give it a really good pinch, and then unfold. And now we are going to give some volume to this buffalo. So to do that, what we basically need to do is take the other half of the body and pull it out and reverse some of the creases again. So if I open this up all the way, you will see a diamond shape on the back of the model that we created from the previous steps. And what we need to do, we need to take this valley segment and this valley segment and turn those both into mountain folds so that they mirror the mountain folds that we already have on the left side of the paper. So I'm going to very carefully just reverse those two creases with a couple of mountain pinches. And keep in mind that these two layers want to slip around a little bit, so just try to keep those together as best you can. I'm also going to make sure that this goes back to being a mountain, because when I did that little inside reverse pinch, it did reverse that crease, but it easily goes back. And once the diamond is in place, we can kind of pull this together and kind of shape the back a little bit. And so there's the body. And the last thing we're going to do is shape the horns a little bit. So let's go ahead and unfold the horn almost entirely on both sides. And there's the buffalo. Now something I like to do, I like to give the buffalo more of a curled horn look. So to do that, I'll just get my handy little cylindrical tool here. In this case, it's my Apple pencil. And I'm just going to kind of roll the horn over the tool. Of course, you could use lots of different things to do this. And that will give it a really nice curved shape. Let me do the other one. What's nice about a tool like this, even though this isn't what it's intended for, is that it has a cone-shaped tip, which is nice if you want to curl something. It's a little bit smaller than curling it around like the full shaft of like a pencil or an Apple Pencil. And there you have it, the Buffalo designed by Fumiaki Kawahata. I want to give a huge thanks to Fumiaki Kawahata for allowing us to teach this model in this video. So, many thanks. Thanks so much for joining us. Please let us know in the comments down below what other models you'd like for us to teach. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you on down the road. Ciao.